what you're looking at on the screen is a failed. This is America. These are Edomites in America. See, Amalek, who controls everything and runs everything, that's going to be the next video, and hopefully I don't get hit with anti-sim this and anti-sim that. You know, they fucked over the rest of Edom. These Edomites. All right, as Tim Wise always says. Matter of fact, I think I got a Tim Wise video. You know, because that whiteness thing, now I'm kind of going off the reservation because this wasn't a part of the plan. But, you know, the Spirit do what the Spirit do. And I'll let him explain it. Let me find him. I got this little short video of him just waiting for them all to load. There he is. And I believe that Tim Wise might be a Jake anyway, you know, of Scottish descent. You got to remember the Scots, the Irish, and the Brits were originally so-called black people after the fall of Rome, or Israelites, all right? And the white people, you know, the Edomites weren't calling themselves white, moved them out of those lands, all right? They pushed them out of those lands. That was, you just go and learn about the history of Oliver Cromwell and his brother. They were removing the black royalty, you know, and the black nobles out of England, Ireland, and Scotland. The word Scot literally means black. You know, Dublin means the black city. You know, so and then the relics and the statues and the relics are still there in that part of the world to prove it. You know, and there's plenty of history books and imagery to prove it as well. But they, you know, they just kind of put that history under the rug, you know, and teach around it. But without any further ado, Mr. Tim Wise on the creation of whiteness and how the elites, meaning Amalek, he just didn't say it. You know, the small hatters left the other whites out collectively when it came to the wealth distribution, but let them be this new form of humanity called white. And they got a few benefits. And now, as you see on the screen, those benefits don't work anymore. Just being called white, and being that the one slumped over is wearing a white hat and a white t-shirt, she's carrying a white t-shirt, he's wearing a white t-shirt, and none of their skin is white. So that's a social construct that they created falsely, you know, to support this new thing of newly created thing called white superiority to put themselves ahead, which has failed miserably.
When we look around and we see today in our politics a rich white man telling working class white people that their problem is brown people, we need to understand the historical.
Notice he said brown because there's no such thing as black people. Everyone is different shades of brown, from dark chocolate brown to a very light colored brown, you know, butterscotch, caramel brown. All right. There's no such thing as white people. There's no such thing as black people. All right. Those are social constructs created to support white superiority, which is a false construct.
I agree with that. That is symbolic of the entire history of race and class politics in America. The history of rich white people telling working class and poor white people that their problem are black and brown people. Beginning in the 1600s, that is what happens. Prior to about 1670 or so, there was no such thing as the white race, at least not recognized as such, called as such. That's not what people of European descent were when they were in Europe. They were English, they were Irish.
They became white in 1681 on paper. So he just said there was no such thing before the 1670s. He's correct.
They were Scottish, they were whatever they were not white. Only in the colonies do we become white, and for a very specific reason, because in those early years of the colonial period, where you had white indentured servants, one level above enslaved themselves, and you had African-descended folks, some of them enslaved for life, others indentured servants also in the earliest years of the colonies.
So there were lots of so-called black people that were in America already, all right? And guess what? They were called Native Americans because they were natives. Many of them were natives. Also, another thing happened in the 1600s, 1683 to be exact. In Virginia, the Negro and the Native were declared the same thing. Later on, census enumerators began to reclassify natives as Negro. So there's a lot of so-called black people in America that are actually Native Americans. Okay? That's just fact. That's true. It's very, very true. They're Gad and Reuben.
Would often see their interests as being common. They all realized that they were being screwed over by the same landowners, the same elite. They fomented various rebellions like Bacon's Rebellion in Virginia, others as well. And as a result, the elite in the colonies realized that they had to figure out a way to get the other folks from Europe on their team. So they created this mentality that said, you're now a member of the white race. You're on our team. You're wearing our uniform. Now you're at the end of the bench. You may not get in the game, but you're on our team, you see. So
And see, that was enough. They're at the end of the bench. All right. So the little benefits and teats that they got from being so-called white, well, it's run out. That's why they're so angry and ready to rebel now. They didn't care when Jake was getting, effed over and destroyed. All right. And the end result of that is going to be this now. Hold on. Let's go back. Because now it's all turning on them because this society, which has pushed whoredoms and promiscuity of women, well, it's produced this now. All right. And you have to also think, too, that the so-called white woman sat back and watched her man oppress her and do all these things and make all these little brown babies, these little light brown babies and yellow babies with all these slave women, which are terrors, by the way, millions of them. Them BOIs don't like to hear about that. White men made millions upon millions of babies with black women, and those so-called black children are Edomites. Just they're chocolate covered Edomites, point blank period. And they're all mixed in this society and running around. So some of the darkest people you can see really are Edomites. All right. They don't like to talk about that portion because they'll quickly dismiss someone who's light complected or looks like a white man or woman and say that that's not an Israelite, but completely ignore all these chocolate Edomites that are running around. Which some of them may be because they can't understand the spiritual aspect of this. Which a lot of these chocolate people that BOIs actually might be, and what BOI means, black only Israelites, a lot of them may be Edomites themselves. So here we go. Let's play this short clip.